When you first come across your audiobook that you'd like to read, I think the number one step is to proofread it. Just go through it, preferably reading it out loud if you can. If not, just proofread it in your head. But I think reading out loud often helps. This is a whodunit, bit of a kind of Agatha Christie type thing. Inspector Gray furrowed his brow as he surveyed the room where the crime had occurred. The victim, Lord Archibald, lay lifeless in an ornate armchair. Any leads, Constable Parker? So that's Inspector Gray. That's the first bit of dialogue. And you're faced with a dilemma, I think, when you start doing a book that's got character voices in. Do you put on the voice as if you are the character playing the role, or do you just hint that somebody else is speaking? And I think I tend to feel that you'd be better off, unless you're really good at character voices, but you'd be better off just hinting that somebody else is speaking. So Inspector Gray, I mean, at the end of the day, look, it's not a drama, is it? It's a story, and you're telling the story. You're not playing the roles particularly. So you've got Inspector Gray. Just read on with the proofread. Parker adjusted his cap nervously. Not much, sir. Lady Eleanor found the body. She claims she was in the garden at the time. So you've got Parker as the constable, and no doubt we're going to meet Lady Eleanor, and here she is. Lady Eleanor, her eyes still swollen from tears, chimed in. It's true, Inspector. I was admiring the roses. And again, there, you don't want to be a sort of Miss Havisham type read. It's true, Inspector. I was admiring the roses. And that would be silly. I think you just have to hint, particularly if you're a male voice, try to do a female voice, and vice versa. If you're a female voice and you're doing the Inspector Gray and Constable Parker voices, for you to start putting on as a female voice, start putting on a deep voice is going to sound ridiculous. So it's just kind of coloring the voice very slightly. Gray turned his attention to the butler. This is the next paragraph. Mr. Wainwright, who seemed unusually composed. And where were you when it happened, Wainwright? And there, look, I think there's a bit of an emphasis. Where were you when it happened? As opposed to where were you? Something I'm going to have to bear in mind. The butler's voice was steady. So he got another, this is Wainwright, the butler. You don't want to do a kind of Jeeves. I was preparing dinner, sir, in the kitchen. It's going to sound stupid. So but you've still got a hint that somebody else is speaking. As Gray examined the scene, he noticed a half-empty glass of wine on a side table. Parker, so this is Gray talking to Parker, the constable. Parker, collect this glass for fingerprints. As the constable moved to obey, a sudden creak of a floorboard echoed through the hallway. Gray's instincts kicked in. Nobody move. We have an unexpected guest. Nobody move. No, it'd be more like that, won't it? Nobody move. We have an unexpected guest. I think that bit's got to be your mystery, isn't it? Your mystery hook. We have an unexpected guest. We have an unexpected guest. Yeah, something like that. The mansion's sinister secrets were about to unravel, and Inspector Gray was determined to unveil the truth behind Lord Archibald's untimely demise. Okay, so then maybe do a sort of a bit of a test read and see what you think, so you can just get the hang of the story. Inspector Gray furrowed his brow as he surveyed the room where the crime had occurred. The victim, Lord Archibald, lay lifeless in an ornate armchair. Any leads, Constable Parker? Parker adjusted his cap nervously. Not much, sir. Lady Eleanor found the body. She claims she was in the garden at the time. So I've decided to do a slightly deeper voice and a slightly more authoritarian voice for Inspector Gray. And then a kind of not quite Cockney, but not being a cliche here, by the way, but not much, sir. Lady Eleanor found the body, so he's a bit of a sort of cheeky chappy constable, but definitely lower rank than Inspector Gray. Uh, Lady Eleanor, her eyes swollen from tears, chimed in. Okay, so here she is. It's true, Inspector. I was admiring the roses. Yes, so it's still me, but a bit more clipped, maybe a bit posher and a bit lighter. So I've lightened my voice. I'm using my head voice. It's true, Inspector. I was admiring the roses. Then onwards we go. Gray turned his attention to the butler, Mr. Wainwright, who seemed unusually composed. And where were you when it happened, Wainwright? Sorry, I'd need to be a bit deeper. And where were you when it happened, Wainwright? The butler's voice was steady. Okay, so I've got another voice to do here. And I can't do it. I was preparing dinner, sir, because that's my Constable Parker. So I need to be, I don't know, I might sort of just go a bit left field here and put on a Scottish voice, simply because I was a big fan of Upstairs, Downstairs, which was like a precursor to Downton Abbey here in Britain in the 70s. And they had a butler called Hudson. I was preparing dinner, sir, in the kitchen. Yes, so a very posh kind of, almost Edinburgh. I was preparing dinner, sir, in the kitchen. As Gray examined the scene, he noticed a half-empty glass of wine on a side table. Parker, collect this glass for fingerprints. So there, interestingly, I'm using my natural northern tones, my East Midlands tones, to say glass, because that's how I would normally speak. But I think for Parker, I need to be a bit more RP, or a bit more southern, if not RP. So I'm going to say glass. Parker, collect this glass for fingerprints. Parker, collect this glass for fingerprints. I think it'd be more like that, wouldn't it? As the constable moved to obey, a sudden creak of a floorboard echoed through the hallway. Gray's instincts kicked in. Nobody move. We have an unexpected guest. Nobody move. We have an unexpected guest. I think it's more like that, isn't it? And then just your bit at the bottom, which would be the narrator. The mansion's sinister secrets were about to unravel, and Inspector Gray was determined to unveil the truth behind Lord Archibald's untimely demise. So the key, I think, is getting your character voices sorted, not being too much, don't act them too much if you can, but do hint that somebody else is speaking.